Welcome, everyone. It is great to have you here for, I think this is the first of the Flex workshops for the spring semester. There is a link here on the slide for this slideshow. I'm also going to copy the link and place it in the chat for those of you who are attending this live, so that you can access the links that I share in this presentation. So you're here presumably for a workshop on, am I sharing the right screen? Can you guys see my presentation only? Yeah, okay, cool, a lot of practice. Alrighty, so we are here for 2 easy ways to make your course more accessible. And I'm going to admit right now that this was some sneaky advertising to draw you in for this workshop, because we're actually going to be covering more than 2. But I broke them up into 2 basic ways that we can make things more accessible. So the first one is how to get your videos captioned, because I know we are working with a lot of videos now after 2 years basically of teaching online. You probably have a whole lot of Zoom recordings or videos that you've made, screen captures, welcome videos, that kind of stuff. And as you know, captioning is time consuming. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm also going to review the use of a couple of different kinds, or 4 different kinds of accessibility checkers that are available for us to use. And these accessibility checkers make creating accessible content create content that is more accessible. So for those of you who are a little bit new to the accessibility aspect of things, I think this is probably a good opportunity for me to put in some shameless plugs for the other accessibility workshops that I'm going to be hosting, typically on Fridays at 10 a.m. It's like, I think every Friday or every other Friday for the CRC OER award program, where I'll be talking about a lot of different aspects of creating accessible content and accessible courses. For the time being, we can just talk about the sort of basics of accessibility, which is essentially ensuring that whatever electronic content, or even your face-to-face course design stuff, ensuring that it is that everyone can access it, regardless of what technology they may be using. So for example, hard of hearing users needing captions for those videos so that they know what's being said in the video. Another example would be alternative text on images, so that individuals using a screen reader can understand what is in that image. So that we're going to be talking a little bit about some of those things there, but for the fundamentals of accessibility, I have some resources for you at the end of this workshop that you may want to access as you're updating your content for this semester. Alrighty, so let's first start off with the captioning, which is the first really easy way that you can make your class more accessible. And the first question is, well, do my videos need to be captioned? It's just a welcome video. I'm only going to use it for this semester, and or it's something that I only show in my face-to-face classes. The answer is yes. All instructional videos need to have accurate human-generated captions. You read that right, human-generated. So not automatically generated captions. Those are not ADA compliant. And part of the reason why these captions are not ADA compliant is because they often lack punctuation. There's usually misspellings, although the auto-generated, the AI that generates those captions has gotten a lot better. It still doesn't catch all of the spelling errors, especially if you're looking at something like biology. And I see a couple of biologists here. The terminology is, it's based on Latin, not on English. And so the auto-generated captions can be pretty bad. I'll That said, if you speak really slowly in your video and you enunciate the auto, and you're speaking and you're not using any special terminology, the auto-generated captions are generally pretty good, but they're not ADA compliant. So in short, the answer is, yep, you got to get them captioned. The good news is that we can do that very easily now, because Los Rios is paying for our videos to be captioned by a third-party contractor called Rev. And so we now don't have to do our own captions. A couple years ago, this was a large portion of the workload for an online instructor, was actually creating the captions for our videos, but we don't actually have to do that now because we have someone that will do it for us, and they're very fast. So it's really great. And the nice part is that they're not choosy about what videos they caption. So as long as the video is not already captioned accurately on YouTube, for example, they will caption it. So if you're using videos in your course that are posted on YouTube or Vimeo or some other streaming streaming video service, they can usually caption those. They can also caption any video that you create. As long as you have the MP4 file for it, they will caption it. So how do you access the captions? Well, you're going to go to this website, and I can show you what it looks like. It's just basically a Google form, and submit an initial query. Excuse me? Oh, okay. So this is the form that you will get to when you go to the captioning request. And this form is very simple. They're going to be asking you for your WID and your email address, your primary campus. And this is just for record keeping purposes. There's record keeping purposes. There's no limit to which campus you can be at. It also helps link you up with a captioning coordinator. We have captioning coordinators who are assigned to each college, and they will be working on all of the requests for each of the the college they are assigned to. So one thing to note about this captioning request is that it asks you specifically what types of files of videos you have. If you have your own MP4 video files, then you can submit those. For an example of this would be, let's say you use Studio to record some video lectures. Maybe they include screen capture, or maybe it's just you talking, could be a PowerPoint that you're speaking over, that kind of thing. So those Studio videos can actually be downloaded as an MP4 file and shared via cloud, like Google Drive, and shared with the captioners. And then those captions will be created as a file, and you can upload those back to the original video in Studio on Canvas. If your videos are already posted publicly on YouTube or Vimeo, then they can basically use that and generate the captions, and then you can upload the caption file to your YouTube video. If the video is from a third-party person, like, for example, I like to use crash course videos, or maybe I found a really great animation that describes mitosis, but that's not accurately captioned. So I share that YouTube link with the captioner, and they will generate captions. And then we have to post that video in Studio on Canvas, where it is protected by our firewall, and have that particular version captioned using the caption file that they generate. We can't actually share our captions with the YouTube content creators unless we own the YouTube video. If you have more questions about that, feel free to ask me after the workshop, or when you submit this, the captioning coordinator will help clarify this. Another thing is that there's not a limit to the number of hours that you can submit for the captioning service. In fact, they prefer if you do a batch submit, where you submit your entire semester's worth of videos at once. That is more efficient for both the coordinators who do all of the paperwork, and also for the captioners, because then you get one batch file and you don't have to continually be submitting. So please, in other words, do not submit one lecture at a time or 1 week at a time, because that creates more workload for our captioners who are trying to do all of this on like a 0.2 FTE. Okay. So that's it for the captioning services. I will pause for just a moment and see if there are any questions. I don't see anything posted in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions about the captioning service?
Jenna, can I ask a quick question?
Please do.
Yes, I mainly use Zoom to do live lecturing. So how does that work? And I normally record it and then post it on Canvas as soon as it's available.
Sure. So if you're using a Zoom recording, the Zoom recording is usually recorded to the cloud. That's one of the, we recommend that you record your videos to the cloud. It makes sharing easier, but it also makes it easier for you to share that video with the captioners. Does that answer your question? When you're on Zoom, when you go to your recording section on Zoom, I don't have Zoom pulled up right now, so I can't show that to you, but there will be a section where you can view recordings and you can share a link to that recording. And
yes.
that link, if you make that public, then the captioner can access the video that way and generate the captions. Then when you upload that video to YouTube, when you upload that Zoom recording to Canvas Studio, you can add the captions that they have generated there.
Okay, now I normally just copy the link and then post it on Canvas. I don't really use Studio in Canvas because I heard a lot of things about that.
Studio is a wonderful tool. When we first started off with Studio, it was not so great, but it is certainly very effective now. If you want to have your lecture videos captioned, then you will need to post them somewhere besides the cloud recording on Zoom with the link on Zoom. So a couple options would be you can post them on a YouTube channel. And make it, available to only Los Rios users. And that way you can add your captions on YouTube. So it would be your YouTube Los Rios channel, or you could post it in Canvas Studio. Those would be my two recommendations. But the transcript that Zoom generates for not the live transcript, but the narrated transcript that Zoom will generate after the fact on your cloud recording, that is not accurate because it is machine generated. So it's not sufficient for accessibility compliance.
Yeah, no, I noticed it's not accurate.
Yeah.
And I mean, given that I'm not an English native speaker, so that would be even worse. Yes,
and that is one, that is another great reason why having a human generate the captions can provide us with more accessible options than the machine generated ones. If you'd like to go through the workflow of adding a Zoom video to your studio in Canvas, I'd be happy to do that afterwards.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Jenna.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Any other questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Okie dokie. So, obviously getting human-generated captions or accurate captions for your videos is going to be a game changer for your students because there are a number of students that we probably have in our classes who have not disclosed that they need an accommodation or have elected to not make an appointment or have been unable to get an appointment with DSPS. And so it's always a good idea to ensure that our videos have those accurate captions for students who elect not to disclose that they are deaf or hard of hearing. I find also just, my hearing is fine, but I find that I process videos much better when the captions are on. I actually watch movies, everything with captions these days, because it makes such a tremendous difference in my comprehension of what I'm watching. So captions are great all around. So now let's talk about accessibility checkers. Accessibility checkers are things that are going to, it's a software application embedded within another application that you're using. And this extension essentially will go through the content that you've built, whether it's a Canvas page or a Canvas assignment or even a discussion post or a Word document or a PowerPoint, and it will check it for accessibility against the most common accessibility issues. So listed here are the accessibility checkers that I am going to attempt to show you today. And there's another one listed at the bottom called the Adobe Action Wizard, and it will help you remediate Adobe PDFs. But I am not including it in this workshop because for the most part, we really want to try to provide our students with the original file format rather than a PDF. Long ago, 15 years ago, PDF was viewed as the most accessible option. That has dramatically changed. So if at all possible, avoid providing your students with PDFs unless you know for a fact that they are accessible. Word documents or PowerPoints in their original file format are going to be far more accessible, even if they haven't been fully remediated, than in a PDF. Questions about that?
Okay, sorry, I have a question.
Oh, yes, wonderful.
All my files are in PDF because I am, for those of you who don't know me, I teach math. So there are a lot of math equation functions and all of that. And if I upload the file in Word, then some students are not able to view the file, especially if they don't have math type or certain math equation on their computer. So
okay.
Yeah, so
are you using when you generate your equations in Word, for example, or in Canvas, are you using math type or LaTeX?
I mainly use math type. Actually, I use both math type and equation editor.
Okay, so the equation editor in Canvas is okay. But it presents the equation in LaTeX rather than actually saying out the symbols. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's a LaTeX code for a symbol, and then there's the actual symbol name that we commonly use. Students who are not fluent in LaTeX, and not all screen reader users are going to be fluent in that, may not understand the equation that we've generated using LaTeX, which is why Los Rios has paid for a license for math and science faculty who use a lot of equations. We've paid for math type, both the math type on Microsoft Office, so for Word and PowerPoint, but also for the math type editor within Canvas. When a math type equation is generated, it should be more readable than using the equation editor within Word or Canvas. Okay, so now for the actual reading the document, I understand why you would want to do PDFs there. I believe, and I'm going to have to check on this, Lloyd, but I think that if you generate an equation using math type, it will actually save those symbols when you convert it to a PDF, and it won't be treated as an image. Sometimes when we generate an equation using the Canvas equation editor or the equation editor, original equation editor in Word, it'll get saved as an image, and then there's no alternative text for that image. So try to use math type when you do that. The other alternative is to generate an HTML file of that, those documents that have math type equations in them, because the HTML file will be more accessible to students. It's locked. They don't need to have math type on Word in order to access the file, but they can still read it with a screen reader. Does that help at all?
Yes, but most of my files I use either equation editor or math type in Word. I hardly use the equation editor in Canvas unless when it comes to the exam where I create the quiz, for example, assignment. Then
sure.
Yes.
So Lloyd, can you make a note of this and drop me an email afterwards to remind me to check on the accessibility of a math type equation for a student who doesn't also have the extension? I will look into that. I can reach out to Wyrus, who I think is the creator of the math type, and find out more about that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so Pamela said in the chat, you have the same problem with art history, right? So when you have like really complicated images, it's hard to have a very heavy image saved as a PDF. Is there, or it's easier to save it as a PDF. Is it possible, instead of having it as a PDF, to just post it on Canvas instead? The reason that I say that is, like, if you put multiple images on a Canvas page, then you're using the power of Canvas's servers to access those images rather than the processing power of the computer. That might help a little bit. Best practices for online teaching, and most of us are teaching some form on the spectrum of online these days, is that as much as we can, we want to try to move away from files and move to putting stuff on Canvas pages. Because the Canvas pages are more accessible, both for students that may be using screen readers, but they're also more accessible for our students who are using mobile devices. And you probably are aware of this from talking with your students. Many of our students are using mobile devices to complete most of their coursework in their online classes. When we add a PDF, as opposed to a Canvas page, we add another layer of complexity to their ability to access the content that we want them to see. So if you can, try to move that stuff out of documents and into pages. And trust me, I know that's a lot of work. I'm not trying to trivialize it, but ultimately we're here for our students and we want them to be successful. And so that makes that time investment worthwhile.
Okay, Jenna,
yeah.
May I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
So a page, do you mean like a image on a page, or because multiple images?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Images on the page. I get that as far as doing lectures and a student accessing my lecture because it's set up as a page, or I locate that lecture and it's a page in Canvas. I hope I'm making sense, Jenna.
So let me see if I understand. So in a classroom, you would be using presumably a PowerPoint presentation to share these images with your students, right?
No, online, Jenna.
Oh, this is for online only? Oh, then most definitely you have them on pages rather than a file. And there are a variety of ways that you can embed images on a page so that you can include text as well. I just recently worked with a history of photography instructor, and they have loads of really high quality images in their class. And they work just fine, even from a mobile device. And they're all in pages. Yeah.
Okay, I think I just have to try it for me to understand.
Sure, yeah. If you'd like to make an appointment with me, we can meet up on Zoom and we can talk through it and see if we can come up with a solution for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Okay, so I'm going to pause with the questions and see if I can get through some of the accessibility checkers that we have available to us. For the most part, accessibility checkers are going to be looking at these things. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are the major errors that we typically see when we run an accessibility checker. So the accessibility checkers are going to be looking for nested headings. I can show you what headings look like, but here's a graphic to kind of help with that. The idea is that headings are they are like you creating a table of contents, if you will, in your document or on your Canvas page. And if we think about our documents or our Canvas pages as like components of a book, like a book chapter, right? Each chapter has a title, and then it has sections. And then within each of those sections, there are subsections. By using the styles the heading feature in the styles ribbon on Word, or using PowerPoint templates, slide templates, rather than creating our own slides from a blank slide, or by using the headings option in the formatting toolbar in Canvas, we can create a hierarchical structure that can be easily navigated for students using screen readers, because they can tab from section to section, but also it creates a visual structure for sighted students that can help chunk information and make it more digestible. We call this reducing cognitive load. Some other things that can help with that are using pre-formatted lists. So bulleted lists and numbered lists, but not hand done, using the formatting options that are provided within whatever application you're using. Canvas has a lists feature, Word and PowerPoint have list features. Whatever you do, don't type 1 period space, because that is not going to create a list that is tagged appropriately for a student with a screen reader. Alt text descriptions to images, and Pamela, we're definitely going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, because I know that when we have really complex images, and this isn't just for art, this is also for STEM, those alt texts can get really unwieldy. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Make sure that we give links a descriptive name, not click here, because if you have multiple click here's on a page, it can get really confusing for students using a screen reader to keep track of which click here is the one they're supposed to click on. We also want to use colors with sufficient contrast. I've given some examples. Those are both blue. The great contrast is a very dark blue, and the poor contrast is a really light blue. Some users struggle with contrast like that. I'm going to finish this slide, Jason, and then I'll get to you. Then we have templates for presentations. So this particular presentation is a Google presentation. And I've got to be perfectly honest with you. I threw this together at the last minute, and I have not added alt text to all my images yet. Shame, shame, shame on me. But I will. And I also used the pre-formatted slide layouts that came with Google Slides. You can do the same thing with PowerPoint as well. And last but not least, do not use scanned PDFs. I know that the library has been very generous in offering scanned copies of the first couple chapters of textbooks for students. And a student who can't use that scanned PDF will always reach out to you, not necessarily always, may reach out to you and let you know that that doesn't work. But as far as like full semester stuff goes, avoid using PDFs of scanned paper PDFs, because those are essentially images and impossible for students using screen readers to read. So when an accessibility checker checks your document or your Canvas element, it's going to be looking at these things and then some more things. Jason.
So yeah, so I know we're talking about obviously accessibility during, through Canvas or lecture. Now, when you were talking about lists and whatnot, would that then also apply to emails? Because I know sometimes I'll reply an email and I'll give a list of things to do or portions of a lecture.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, I've included Outlook in here as one of the things that I'm hoping in the next 30 minutes to demonstrate, because yes, email accessibility is a big thing. Right? We use email a lot to communicate with students. And the one issue I have with Canvas is that you can't really format the messages that you send in Canvas for accessibility. You have to manually create a list, and that bugs me to no end. So if you know that you are communicating with a student who uses a screen reader or requires accommodations, generally it's probably better to communicate using your Outlook email, because then when you're using Outlook, you can format for accessibility. And if your audience is unknown in general, you're sending it out to a bunch of people, maybe you don't know them personally, try to format it for accessibility, but we'll get to that. So Loy said that she used scanned PDFs all the time, right? Okay, so here's a quick and dirty solution for that. So make a video of you handwriting the solution on paper and narrate it. You can do this by taking your camera and taping it to something, or taking your webcam and just pointing it straight down and use it as like a document camera and speak over the equation as you write it and get that captioned. And that will make that handwritten equation accessible. You could also record an audio over a static image of that and get that captioned as well. Does that help? Or does that just create more work? Okay.
Definitely that helps, and it also creates a lot of work as
Oh
well.
yeah.
Because sometimes it's the last minute thing.
Right. Yeah. So I have a couple of things that we could talk about offline or outside of this video about quick ways to make videos, but I know, and I'm going to plug this, Julie and Brandon and seriously, like what? Yeah. And Amanda and Loy, are you in that? Are you presenting on that video, the how to make quick videos workshop tomorrow, right, Julie?
Yeah, it's me, Brandon, Amanda, Lisa Marie, and ECE, I'm blanking on, Jeanette.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm guessing that they may have some examples of video recording software that you could use for a quick and dirty document camera kind of situation. Yeah, and there are document cameras that you can buy or tripods that you can get off of Amazon for your phones that will create a document camera for your phone or your webcam pretty easily if you don't feel like building one yourself. Okay, Jason, and then we got to move on.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, and I just saying too, if you have just I think it's pronounced Wacom or Wacom tablet, you can use, I think, the white screen option on Studio and speak over that, and then that way you don't have to worry about having a cam capturing stuff and then narrating that. It then is recorded directly into Canvas, and you can have that captured or captioned, I think.
Yeah, and if you don't have a Wacom tablet, you can use Zoom and your phone or iPad and a stylus and use the whiteboard feature in Zoom and annotate on the whiteboard in there and record your audio over that and get that captioned. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the different accessibility checkers, right? This is the second way that we can make our content more accessible, is letting some software help us out. And so one of the main software that you've probably come across in Canvas is Ally. And I'm going to show you what Ally looks like in just a moment, but essentially what Ally does is it's already installed within Canvas. Every single Canvas course has Ally running in the background, and Ally will automatically scan files in Canvas and provide feedback and guidance for instructors. And you've probably seen the little indicators on your images in Canvas or your files in Canvas. And if you click on that indicator, it will give you some constructive feedback for how to improve the accessibility of that document. Another thing that Ally does is it provides alternative formats of files and pages for students. So I've got a link in the presentation, and I see that some of you are on the presentation right now. So I'm gonna, once again, share the link to the presentation in case for those of you who have joined us later. So there's the presentation once again. And you can click this link to go see the Ally Quick Start Guide. It will look something like this. And essentially it goes through the stuff that you will see when you're interacting with Canvas. Okay, so in Canvas, you will see associated with files and images, you will see these little Ally indicators. And they are indicating essentially like how much attention you need to devote towards making that content accessible. There's a range here. It doesn't really matter. You know, we're going for green. And if we've got red or orange, then we know that we probably need to do something about it. And so when Ally provides us with those indicators and you click on the indicator, it's going to open up an interface, and I'll show you what this looks like in just a moment, but you can see that here. And it gives you an accessibility score and provides feedback and suggestions for how you can make that more accessible. And it says, you know, what does this mean if this document doesn't have headings, how to add those headings, but then Ally doesn't actually do the work for you. And that's why I'm also going to be talking about the Microsoft Office accessibility checkers in a moment, because that will help with that. Another feature of Ally is that it allows you to add alt text to images. And I love this feature. Okay, so I'm here in one of my demo shells, and I've already done some of the work here, but you can see that these images here, they all have these little indicators. And if I select the indicator, it will say, oh, good job, you have a description, and here is the description. If this description, for example, was instead, right, it's going to give, if I put a file name in here instead, which all images generally start out with a file name as the alt text, you'll get a little red flag here. And you can edit it right here, save it, and anytime you post that image again within Canvas, it will automatically include that alt text. Now here is the problem. Ally is only going to be checking the images that I have uploaded to this particular course. So if my images are located in the My Files area under my profile, then it may not necessarily be checking those in my course. So we want to make sure that anytime you add an image to the course, you're going to use the upload image feature. You're not going to be linking from Pixabay or Unsplash or anything like that, because it makes it harder to add and adjust the alt text to suit your needs. So save that image from whatever free image service you're getting that image from, upload it to Canvas, and then upload it. Essentially, it's going to be placed in your files. So I think I have all of my images already in here, and you can see this one needs attention. Here's another catch with the Ally alt text is that if you edit it here in files, it's not going to translate out to the actual pages where it's posted. So don't ever edit the alt text in here. Because it won't get saved. An example of this is me adding alt text for, oh, I didn't do it in this particular shell, but adding alt text for all of these module headings, and then going in and discovering that every single page that I had placed them on, I had to update the alt text independently. So don't do that. Use it from pages instead. Okay. Ally does have the files feature as well, right? So let's see, do I have a file here? Here we go. So here's a file, and if I click on it, it may take a little bit. Oh, it's a PDF and it's untagged. Oh, that's scary, because then we have to open it in Adobe Acrobat Pro, and we have to go through and tag the document either manually or automatically, and then check those tags. And oh, that is a PIA. Big time. So if you have a different version of this, for example, this would be a LibreText. So I'm just going to not use the PDF. I'm going to use the website because it's already accessible. Or if you have the Word document version of that, remediate that first. And we'll talk about how to do that. Whew, okay, I got to keep moving. Alrighty. So Ally is a really great feature to get you started. Okay. Oh, I forgot. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about. So images, let me see if I can find an image that is sort of complicated. I don't know if I have a really good example in here. Okay, so here's an old image. This doesn't apply anymore, right? Because it's Confer Zoom. Okay, so this particular image has words in it. When I generate alt text for this image, I should include all of the words in the alt text of the image. So the image has a description, but the image description doesn't include all of the words because I'm missing all of this stuff over here. There is a limit to the size of the alt text that you can do. It's about 150 characters. So think like a tweet. And that's about as long as you can, as long as you can make it. Anything longer than that, and the screen reader that a student uses to read that alt text is going to cut off at 150 characters. So try to keep it short, and if you can't, then you'll need to generate long descriptions for them. And that is definitely outside of the realm of this particular workshop. But if you guys are interested in a long description workshop, pop that in the chat and let me know, and I will be happy to post one, or either do a video or post a session, a Flex workshop at some point this semester about long descriptions, because I know that that's something that, especially in STEM, but also in the arts, that we really struggle with. Okay. All right, so the other feature of Ally that is really awesome is that Ally generates alternative formats. This may not necessarily be something that you're interested in, but your students may be very interested in it. So anytime a file is posted on Canvas and you've linked to it on a page, there's a little arrow that shows up next to it. And when a student selects that arrow, options will show up like preview, download, and alternative formats. The alternative formats that are available to students are HTML, EPUB, electronic braille, audio, and Beeline Reader. Sometimes if it's a scanned document, their Ally, I think, may try to convert that scanned document by optically reading the letters and converting it into text. But I don't know if that's a common feature for like our stuff. So make sure that you let students know that this is available to them, because they may come to you and say, oh, I'm really struggling with viewing this particular file on my, Chromebook or something. You can be like, oh, that's fine. No problem. You can view it as an HTML file, and then you can pretty much open it in any web browser. So that's a nice feature for Ally. Okay. So there are two other things within Canvas, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about how these work, but I want you to know that they are available to you and to show you the basic steps for how to activate them. So Pope Tech Accessibility Guide is a new thing that was added last semester, and you may have noticed when you're in the edit page option within Canvas that this new P appears next to the cancel button. That is the Pope Tech Accessibility Guide. And when you select that P, a little tray opens up from the right-hand side of your screen, and it will show you the accessibility issues, if there are any, with your document. With your Canvas page. This also works on discussion assignment instructions or quiz instructions or assignment instructions. So for example, let's go back to here. Let's go to one of my pages that I have in here, and I'll just show you quickly how this works. Okay, so we're going to go into this Canvas accessibility checker. This is my sample page that has loads of errors. I'm going to go into the edit area. And then if I scroll down a little bit, we'll see that this accessibility guide is available. Now, if I click that, it's going to pop up and it's going to give me a list of things that need my attention. And if I click on them, it's going to break it down, and it will even tell me how to do it. So it says add alternative text that accurately and succinctly presents content of the image. If my alt text is too long, it will tell me. So it's a really, really awesome feature. And you can select multiple, edit multiple images in here, and it gives you a little preview. If the image has no text and it's purely there, you can mark purely there for decorative purposes. You can mark it as decorative. It also tells you about, like, it caught this link, right? And so I have a click here. Oof, we know that's not good. So I need to fix that. So the Pope Tech Accessibility Guide is a really powerful tool because it not only tells you what's wrong, but how to fix it. And that's why I love it. The other accessibility checker, let's make sure that I think I've covered all of this. The other accessibility checker in Canvas, and I'm going to show you on this same page, is the Canvas Rich Content Editor Accessibility Checker. This one's been around for a while, but one of the new features is that it actually has a little alert here, a little notification that tells you that there are some errors that need remediation. Before, there were no notifications here. You had to actively go in and check your document. And so what the accessibility checker does is it tells me that I need to fix some stuff because this is too light in color, okay? And if I change it and I want it to be darker and I click apply, then it'll be like, okay, great job, woohoo, nice work. And then you can continue on. The problem with this is that it doesn't actually like give you as much explanation as the Pope Tech, and it's also not as thorough as the Pope Tech. So I would advise using the Pope Tech accessibility checker as your first go-to within Canvas because it just works much, much better. Okay. Any questions about Pope Tech or the Canvas accessibility checker? Once again, the Pope Tech accessibility checker and the Canvas accessibility checker can be used within Canvas only. They can be used on pages, assignments, discussions, and quizzes. Okay, so it's very helpful. And in fact, your students can even use it on their discussion posts, which is nice if you're interested in asking them to create accessible content too. Okay. All right, so last but not least, we've got the Microsoft Office accessibility checkers. So Microsoft Office has built-in accessibility checkers for Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook. I'm not going to talk about Excel or any of the other features of Microsoft Office. I'm just going to focus on these three because these are probably the most commonly used one. The accessibility checker is hidden. It's a little bit hidden. Ultimately, you're looking for a little button that looks like this, but I'll show you how to get to it. The accessibility checkers within Microsoft Office are much like the Pope Tech accessibility checker in that they will identify the issue and then provide you with prompts for how to update that issue. Unlike the Pope Tech, it won't actually make the change for you. Like you can ask, Pope Tech will say, would you like me to change this? And you can click yes, and it'll do it for you. But the Microsoft Office accessibility checkers don't do that quite as seamlessly. Okay, so here is essentially how you find an accessibility checker within Microsoft Office 365. So PowerPoint and Word. And it's going to be a little bit different for Outlook, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Also on this page, I have included instructions for how to use the checker, just basic, you know, like bullet by bullet with screenshots of what the stuff will look like, but I'm also going to demonstrate it for you. Plus, Microsoft Office has provided some really nice guides for how to create accessible Word documents and how to create accessible PowerPoint documents. I can tell you from experience, it is much faster to build an accessible document from scratch than it is to remediate a document that I created before I knew all of this stuff. Especially when it comes to PowerPoint. Man, remediating a PowerPoint that is not accessible is like hours and hours of, it's excruciating. So definitely check out these two guides provided by Microsoft Office because it will help you learn how to build accessible content. I also have some other resources available that I'll post at the very end for you about how to, some other classes and workshops that you can take to learn more about creating accessible stuff. Right now we're talking about remediation. So I am going to do a new share, and I'm going to share a Word document with you. Okay, so here's a Word document, and I'm going to go to the top. Okay, so I'm in my Word document, and I want to check the accessibility of this document. So I'm going to go, usually you're in the home area, right? And you've got this toolbar, and this is what it looks like. So I want to select the review up here. And then I'm going to select the check accessibility button. And a pane will open up on the right-hand side that identifies the errors of my document and then the warnings. The errors are like absolute no-goes. Those must be fixed. The warnings are, hey, you should think about this, and you probably should fix them too. Okay, so for example, my first error is I have missing alternative text. So if I select this, it will highlight the image that I need to add alt text to, And then it gives me the reasoning for why I need to add alt text and the steps to fix the alt text down at the bottom. So it says right click on the object, then select edit alt text, and then type a description in the pane. Okay, so we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna right click on the image, I'm gonna select edit alt text. It's gonna open up a new one, and oh, check this out. This is a file name, including the location of this particular image. That's probably not going to be helpful. So I'm gonna just delete some of this, and there we go. Okay, and get rid of the file extension at the end. And now I have alt text, and it's done. Okay. So that's really helpful. And then we can go back and it updated here so that alt text error is no longer there, etc. The other error that is in this particular thing is that this has no header row. For those of you that use tables, it's really easy to create a table in Word, but it doesn't actually like this. The table design features make sometimes they make no sense to me at all. So I just wanted to point this out to you for those of you that use tables. Every table needs to have a header row. The header is essentially like a heading for the table, and it identifies this first row as the heading. So what that means is that as a student is tabbing through here using the tab button, it will actually tell them where they are in the table so that they know which column or row they are in. So that is a very helpful feature to add, okay? And so then once I've done this, I wanna make sure that I click save. If you have autosave turned off, why I have autosave turned off, I don't know, I need to fix that. Anyway, so that's the basics for accessible Word documents. So now I'm gonna do another share, and in this case, I'm going to do PowerPoint, and you'll see that in PowerPoint, the same thing happens. I select review, and then I go to check accessibility, and it's going to show me all my errors over here. You may notice that this PowerPoint looks different. That's because I wanted to show you what it looks like in dark mode versus the white mode. I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of time on the screen and my eyes get really tired. I find that when I operate in dark mode, my eyes feel much better at the end of the day. And in fact, some of our students use dark mode as well for accessibility reasons because it provides higher contrast and it's easier on the eyes. So I just wanted to show you what that looks like. If a student tells you they're in dark mode and they can't see something, this is what it would look like for them. And as you can see in this accessibility pane over here, after I selected review, then check accessibility, are the errors associated with this. And the first one is missing alternative text. So you'll notice that there's pictures in here, but there are also lines. And this is the part that just is so exhausting. We have, anytime you add something to a PowerPoint slide, including an image or a shape like an arrow or a text box, it is essentially just a block object with no meaning for a student using a screen reader. So these arrows are nothing to students that can't actually see the image. If they're listening to this using a screen reader, those arrows mean nothing. So if you want to have an image like this, where you have hand labeled the items on here, it is much better to create the image and group everything together and then save all of that whole group as an image, and then make sure that the alt text captures what you need it to. If the alt text doesn't capture, if you can't capture everything in the image in your alt text of 150 characters, then it needs to be placed on the slide itself. Let me view.
So Jenna, I was just about to ask, if you do that group, that's one step to getting it to work,
yes,
right? Okay.
That's one step, but it is not the whole step. After you create the group, then you're going to want to, because for example, like here, I created a group here, but it doesn't have an alt text, right? My group doesn't have an alt text. Even if this image has an alt text, it becomes a new thing. So you need to create the group first and then add an alt text to that group. Or better yet, create it and save it as an image. That way you can use it elsewhere. If you want to put it on Canvas, now you have an image of the same exact thing that you had in your PowerPoint presentation. So the way to do that, right, I've got a group, then I'm going to, save as a picture. So once I've got everything grouped, right, I'm going to save it as a picture. And when you save it as a picture, it's going to export it. And then I usually create my images in one PowerPoint presentation if I'm doing this. And then I have my actual lecture PowerPoint presentation where I put that image that I saved of the group. And that's where I add the alt text. Lots of steps, I know. The other thing to keep in mind with a PowerPoint presentation, especially if you're using a lot of images, is that sometimes slides don't come across with any information on them at all from a student using a screen reader. So the best way to find out how your image is going to be, how your PowerPoint slide is going to be interpreted by a screen reader is to go into View and then, and then Outline View. Outline View will show you essentially a text version of your PowerPoint presentation. And so if we go to this slide here, which is slide 21, and we look at this, what it doesn't show us is the image, right? We see the words only. We don't see that this image has arrows pointing to each of these things. So when a student using a screen reader accesses a PowerPoint presentation, the screen reader is actually going to be scanning through this first, through the text version of it. And if that information that is on the slide is not also in the outline view, then it means the student may not know that. And then it may have to go, the student may need to go in and actually access the image files separately. Notice that on slide 20, there's nothing. Okay, but here's slide 20. I have text right here. But I didn't use a PowerPoint slide template or a slide layout template. I added a text box to a blank slide. And when I did that, this text box is essentially just an image. And students using screen readers cannot access that. If I wanted this slide to actually be accessible to a student, right, I need to go into my slide layout and I need to select one of these that has, you know, like a to content, which would be the image and the text. And then I would need to move those into the content, those images and the text into the actual content items. And then that slide would actually have information on it for a screen reader user. So blank slides and then adding text to them creates null information for students using a screen reader, which unfortunately, it's not going to pick up in the accessibility checker. So that's like, the accessibility checkers are about, you know, like they're maybe 75% good. The rest of it is all manual stuff, which is why I'm telling you about this now. And hopefully that's helpful.
Jenna, quick question. If you didn't offer the PowerPoint as a document for students, but instead had a video that covered some of the PowerPoint slides, but you narrated it, you don't have to worry about this, correct?
Correct.
I know you want to, I know there's pros and cons.
No, that's great. That is probably one of the best solutions that you could have for PowerPoint presentations, is to never give your students the PowerPoint presentation. And if you post it online, just post the video of you talking over the slides and describing the images on that slide in detail as if someone was just listening to you with their eyes closed, right?
Which takes a lot of work because you can't
It
go,
does.
well, you see here or this and that, which we often do. You really have to describe it.
That's correct. Yes, you do need to state exactly, like if you're pointing at a particular spot on the image, you couldn't say as you see here, right? It'd be like in the nucleus, we find blah, blah, blah. So that is definitely the most accessible option, right? Record your PowerPoint presentations, not a whole hour and a half long one, but maybe like 5 minutes at a time, and then get captions for those. The other thing to keep in mind is that I don't know if new versions of PowerPoint allow you to record narrations over the top of the slide presentations, but the old PowerPoint used to allow that. Those narrations that come with each slide, they're not accessible because you can't caption those narrations that are recorded within PowerPoint for each slide. So the easiest way to get around that, if you have old presentations that have slide narration recorded over each individual slide, is to just run it on Present and screen capture and capture the system audio playing your recording as a single video file and then get that captioned. Yeah, but PowerPoints do present a significant challenge for creating accessibility. I can tell you that this is an old version of this particular class. I went through and remediated all of my presentations for Bio 100 a few years ago, and it took me like the entire winter break and then some to do it. So I wish I had been smart like Julie and just recorded over the presentations and called it good. Any other questions about PowerPoint or Word? Okay, I'm going to go back to our presentation because I wanted to tell you, and this is something that Jason brought up at the very beginning, is that email. We also want to try to make our email accessible. And so I really encourage you to use the accessibility checker in Outlook. And depending on whether you're using the web version or the desktop version of Outlook, there are 2 different places to find it. If you're using the web-based Outlook, then you will find the accessibility checker from the More Options menu, which is the 3 little dots menu at the bottom of the Compose pane. And when you select that, a whole bunch of stuff will come up, including check for accessibility issues. The accessibility checker itself is just like the Word and PowerPoint accessibility checker. And so it's really easy to go through and remediate. You can, using the tools within the Compose pane, you can add lists, but you can't really add headings. So if you have a long email that you want to have headings on, great example are Andy's emails that she sends out about the OER award program. You'll notice that there are headings in there. Those are actually created in a separate document, most likely, and then pasted in with the heading formatting already in there. But they're really easy to read, right? You can also, if you're in the desktop version, you select the options and then select check accessibility. Make sure that if you include images inside, embedded in your, if you have an image embedded in your email, make sure you add alt text. If you are adding an image as an attachment, just remember that that attachment image is not going to be accessible. So for example, if it is an image created of a PowerPoint slide that has a table of events, that's not going to be accessible unless you've actually formatted the table in like Adobe or something like that. Okay, and here's some guidelines for how to make things more accessible. Okay, I know it said 9 to 11 for this workshop, but I really didn't want it to be because I want you guys to be able to get to the 10:30 workshops if there are any. Okay, so bottom line, you've got this. the accessibility checkers, they make it easier, and then you can use, you know, the quick tricks, which is just record a video and get a caption. and that will make your class a whole lot more accessible. We're not aiming for 100%, obviously that would be ideal and within the law, but we want to do the best that we can, and be informed. Okay, so what resources do you have available? Me. If you want to schedule a Zoom call or ask me to do a demo of something, just reach out and I'd be happy to do that for you or your department. We also have an accessibility course for Los Rios faculty. It is called the Los Rios Self-Paced Accessible Course Creation Academy. And that link, actually, let's do, oh, I lost you guys. That link I'm going to post in the chat as well, because it's a self-enroll, trying to do too many things here at once. Okay, here's the link. There you go. For the self-paced accessibility course and the California Community Colleges Accessibility Tech Accessibility Center, they have a series of short self-paced accessibility courses that are for Word, Canvas, PowerPoint, PDF, and I think they just created one for STEM faculty. So head on over to their website, which is this third bullet point here, to view those self-paced accessibility courses. And then as part of the CRC OER award program, we want to make sure that if you're creating a zero textbook cost course and using OER, we want to make sure that that stuff is accessible. You don't want to go to all that work to put together an OER course and then find at the end that a student can't access your stuff. So I'm going to be hosting workshops about accessibility throughout the semester to support you in that work. And if you head on over to that link there, it will tell you when those are. I believe the first one for accessibility is the backward design workshop in February.